Hello, strangers. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't listened to part 1 of the episode of Dissociative Identity Disorder, go do that first. If you have already, welcome back. And here's part 2. But here's where things get really weird. So if it's different identities, you would think maybe people are acting out, right? You'd expect the body to stay the same, but that's not what research has found. When they hook people up with DID to like EEGs, they see different patterns of brain activities depending on what state they're in.
That is wild.
Yeah, like different parts light up. It wasn't just the brain. The heart rate changed, breathing changed, muscle tension, stress hormones, pain tolerance, vision. Like
That's
some people
insane.
didn't need their glasses. Have you ever seen the movie Split?
I was thinking about that the whole time
Really? Okay.
we've been talking.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets stronger, that's not unusual because obviously your body has certain strength, but your adrenaline can change, your muscle tension, and you can actually be stronger in one part.
That is so crazy.
So we watched it last night and I was thinking if only those girls knew that, because they could have overtaken him when he was Hedwig, the younger character.
Yes.
Because he would not have believed in his strength. But as the Beast, he believes he's a superhuman. You can't obviously climb walls and do all that kind of shit.
Right.
But you can definitely believe you're stronger and be stronger, which shows how much power the brain has over things.
Right.
You know, like if you believe it, you can be stronger, you know?
Was that based on a true story?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
No. So why is this so controversial? Despite decades of research, DID remains one of psychiatry's most debated diagnoses. A lot of trauma specialists believe it develops through like overwhelming chronic abuse. But some researchers argue that in certain cases, the way DID is talked about in therapy and popular culture could unintentionally influence how symptoms develop. My daughter showed me a video of someone on TikTok, I guess, who has multiple personalities and was doing videos in her different states.
Yikes, that's
so there's some
interesting.
of it that it's like they don't know how much of that is influenced by, it's kind of like maybe a factitious disorder type thing, or if it's actually real. But the truth is probably more complicated than either side wants to admit, because the evidence really strongly supports that it's in most cases trauma related. But scientists still debate exactly how this separation of identity begins. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. DID is not as rare as people think. Researchers estimate roughly 1% of the population meets diagnostic standards. That's a lot.
It is?
Yeah, well, that's approximately as common as schizophrenia.
Oh.
And you just don't hear about it that much, you know?
No, you don't ever hear about it.
No, like I have heard people say, oh, they know someone with schizophrenia many times, but not DID. And people think that maybe it's because they're being misidentified. It's like they either get diagnosed with PTSD or borderline personality or substance use disorders, and they're missing it, because unless you really are seeing someone for a long time and you start to realize, oh, these different ways that they might behave, because you only see that person for an hour. And then even if they come in a little bit differently the next time, then unless they're acting like a literal 6-year-old, you may not notice.
Yeah.
And they might be in a certain part all the time. Anyway, there's many reasons why it could go unrecognized.
That's wild.
But usually what'll happen is they'll start saying, I'm losing time. I feel like I'm watching myself from the outside. People are telling me I'm doing things I don't remember, or I feel like parts of my life are missing. And those are kind of keys that a clinician will look for.
Yeah.
Because you would think family members would know and point things out. But a lot of times, again, the partner just thinks that this is just they're in a mood, or they're being quirky, or, you know, maybe this is just like a part of them that doesn't necessarily represent that there's anything wrong.
Right.
So another way to identify it is that the identity states will differ in a lot of ways. There's the emotional states. So some can be like fearful, and then others can be really confident. Obviously, memories that they can access in one state. Beliefs or attitudes. I saw one documentary where the one part was a lesbian and the other was straight, so they were having a little bit of a difficulty.
Best of both worlds.
Right, exactly. They'll have different interests. Like one of them would like baseball and the other one hated it. And then behaviors. So one part might be a painter and the other part might be a singer. And neither of them have both, but they have either. And obviously ways of coping and how they relate with
That's
with
so
people.
crazy.
It's
Like
so-
you can have a personality and you're so fucking talented at something.
Yeah.
And then you have another personality
who
and
doesn't know jack shit about it.
you just are fucking get scared on your couch.
Right. Yeah, I know. So, but when people think of DID, they often picture a person switching between like a child and adult and different characters. But it's that all those parts necessarily might not, they don't all have these like huge different changes, right? Some people do have it where they'll suddenly be a 6-year-old and suddenly they'll be, but some aren't that drastic. So I know in Hollywood, there's always like this dramatic thing where somebody changes and their whole posture changes and their voice. And
Yeah, those are the movies you see.
Yeah, it can happen that way, but it's not as common. For most people, it's like finding out there's another person in their mind. It's like missing pieces of their story that they haven't identified before.
Like, but if you are missing memories, I would be like, I have dementia.
Exactly, that's what
As
I'm
it is,
saying.
I think I have dementia.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, at least you like watch a show or a movie. All the time I'll watch a movie and then I'll suddenly be like, that's kind of familiar.
I can do an entire series rewatch 3 months later.
3 months.
I'm not joking
Yeah.
you. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Maybe 6.
It depends on how invested you get in the thing, I feel like, too.
I don't know.
Because all the memory is really tied to emotion in a lot of ways. So if you feel like it's really like, you have a real emotional response to it.
Yeah, the only ones I do rewatches of are the ones that I did have like an emotional response to.
But yeah, even so, a lot of it seems new.
Yeah, and I'm like,
what it made me think of?
great.
Severance. It's like that. It's like you have two different
Yes.
identities doing things, but you don't remember what happens in them. You're aware that you have two identities.
But they can't cross over.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Okay.
It is very interesting.
So let's talk about the case that shocked America.
Okay.
Billy Milligan.
Never heard of him.
Okay. So I hadn't either. On October 27th of 1977, police arrested a 22-year-old man named Billy Milligan in Columbus, Ohio. So all this started on the campus of Ohio State University. I think it was 3 or 4 women were robbed and sexually assaulted, and everyone was terrified. But as it turns out, he left fingerprints in one of the cars because he was like, somehow convincing them to get in the car with him, and then he rapes and robs them. But he leaves the fingerprints, and he had a record, so they go right to arrest him, and he doesn't say a word. Like, he doesn't like argue it or anything. He just goes with them quietly, but he kept saying he didn't understand what he was being arrested for. And so when psychologists start meeting with him, something strange happens. Sometimes he's talking with a British accent. And then other times he seems terrified and childlike, and he keeps insisting he has no idea what he's done. So they eventually conclude that he has dissociative identity disorder. So over time, they describe more than 20 distinct identity states. And of course, there's some therapists that are like, he's lying, but the ones that spend the most time with him, they are so convinced that it's real. And a lot of what they say is like, I have spent 6 months with him every day for hours, and never once has he given me any inconsistencies. Like, it's all always perfectly lining up. And he also had like a history of very intense chronic trauma. So he made some of these incredible paintings. So in one altar, he makes these incredible, like really, really talented. And then in others, it's like kind of chicken scratch kid stuff.
Okay.
So I'm going to put some of them on the website. But he had an altar named Reagan, which was rage with an N.
Okay.
And he spoke in a Yugoslav accent. And he was the one that was the group's protector. And then one was outgoing and charming. And then there was a different one who was a frightened child. But according to the treatment team, it was a 19-year-old lesbian altar named Adalina. I had to pronounce that right. Adalinal. She was the one responsible for the crimes because she just wanted to be close to someone.
So I guess I don't understand. Okay, so dissociative is just different parts of your identity, right?
Right.
The lesbian part doesn't make sense.
Right, a female lesbian.
That doesn't make sense.
What? Because it seems more like a different personality than a different identity.
Yeah, like right? That. How would he ever have that as an identity?
Right.
That's weird.
It is weird. And maybe that's part of why a lot of people questioned if he was. I mean, it's 50 years later and people don't have it.
So they still don't know.
They still don't know. Well, a lot of things happened. So he underwent years of horrific torture from his stepdad. And the siblings confirmed this, and the mother. And then they also said that they noticed something was up with him, you know, that he would do these different things. And the sister said he did accents all the time growing up. And sometimes she would kid him, like, oh, you're doing the accent again, but he would never laugh. Like, he wouldn't agree that it was funny or anything. So in 1978, he was the first person in America ever to be acquitted because of dissociative identity disorder.
No shit.
Yeah, he was committed to psychiatric hospitals. But then he gets in the psychiatric hospital and he's like a ladies' man. So evidently he's like taken, it's like, you know, not a high security place. He's taking him out to the orchard and getting drunk with the other, which is like technically sexual assault because
they can't consent, really.
Right, yeah. So it sparked enormous public fascination and a lot of skepticism.
That is fascinating.
Like later on, first of all, he wrote a letter. This was one of the crazy ones. He wrote a letter to his therapist in Arabic, right? And they're just like, what the hell? Like, how does he? But then they later found out that he had another inmate write the letter. This is when he was.
Oh.
So they're
Come on, dude.
Yeah. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. But it's very interesting because I'm wondering if part of it could be real, but then he actually like started laying it on thicker and thicker.
Yeah, embellish. She's like, let's,
Right. Like it might have been.
Let's ham it up.
Right, exactly, and get more attention. But yeah, obviously people are still talking about it to this day. Okay, so when most people think of DID, they picture movies where every identity has a different accent, different clothes, they're secretly a serial killer, but that's entertainment. Most people with DID spend years trying desperately to appear normal. They aren't looking for attention. They're trying not to lose jobs. They're trying to stay married. So we have to at least mention Sybil, because that's one of the cases that turned multiple personality disorder into a household name. In 1973, a book named Sybil was released. Have you heard of it? Yeah, Sally Field played her in the movie. Yeah, it's a story about a woman who was described as having 16 different personalities, and people were totally fascinated by all this, that somebody could have completely different like personalities. And Hollywood immediately grabs onto it and makes a movie out of it. And then everyone's like, is this a thing? And apparently she had horrific childhood trauma. And the psychiatrist, Dr. Cornelia Wilbur, also interviewed Billy Milligan, and she confirmed that she thought he had DID. But she described years of therapy where different identities kept emerging. And it was one of the most famous psychiatric cases ever. But then things got messy because decades later, people started asking, is it like really true? Because a lot of therapists were arguing that the therapy itself had been bringing personalities out because she used hypnosis and she seemed to be like really focused on uncovering personalities. So it's like a lot of people want to make their therapist happy and may, you know, if you're people pleasing to
want to appease them and like I'm gonna ham this up.
Exactly. And then when you start adding potential for money involved, you know, if the therapist is unscrupulous and she's like, I could get a great book out of this, like maybe she's, you know, maybe subconsciously planting things, looking for identity. So it's a hugely influential case, and it changed the way that therapists approach it. And so rather than doing this whole hypnosis deep dive into trying to uncover this forgotten trauma, actually now the therapy focuses on not necessarily integrating the parts, but getting them to collaborate with one another, which I think is super interesting. So you know, everyone's welcome here, but how can we all work together as a system? And then maybe ultimately, I mean, this therapist, Dr. Cornelia Wilbur, would do these things where she would go, I'm going to count to 3 and you're going to fuse. 1, 2, 3, fuse.
Abra fucking cadabra.
And they're like, what? Like, I don't even know what you mean by that. But you could see a person being like wanting to make their therapist happy and being like, yep, they're fused. Like, really.
Good Lord.
So the therapy's about reducing self-harm, managing flashbacks, and then developing skills for them to integrate and collaborate. So this is this interesting documentary I watched called Busy Inside. And it's a therapist who has DID, who does therapy with people with DID. But over years and years of therapy, she has gotten to the point where she has kind of like the manager part that can keep everything. Like the kids will have their time. Never at work can they come out.
What kids?
Her kids inside.
Oh, her kid personality.
Yeah, I think she's like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old.
That's right.
And then they have to stay inside. They cannot come out during sex. That was her partner said, I'm not having sex with a child, so.
She has a partner?
Yes, a wife. Yes.
Oh.
So, and the wife is like, they go to the beach and the kid's out talking like a kid. It's just very interesting to me. Arguably lots of husbands act like 6-year-olds.
Sure.
But maybe they don't talk like them, you know, but it's like the baby talk and all that and
No.
Yeah. So eventually the memory gaps become smaller, life becomes more predictable, relationships become healthier. So the goal isn't perfecting, it's just kind of surviving.
Managing.
Yeah, exactly. So to close, dissociative identity disorder isn't a story about having multiple personalities. It's a story about what can happen when a child's brain does something extraordinary to survive the impossible. So until next time, stay strange.
This was a good one.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
And the bonus episode will be out also on the website. Check it out. We're going to talk about how can you really know a different language? Because in some cases, some of the alters will speak another language that they swear they never learned.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Yes.
Like Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
Just implanted into your brain.
Yep.
Very cool.
All right. Later.
Peace out.